Hey guys, Michael Morrison here with Morrison Marketing, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a video about Apple, and it's some news about Apple, and basically, it's largely about their tax situation. And Apple, like many large corporations, have what's called a double Dutch Irish sandwich or something of that nature, and basically, it's a very it's complex in how they work it out on the books, but basically you have a international corporation, and it's pretty much headquartered, as far as the operations are ran out of a country like America, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and basically you have subsidiaries throughout the world, and namely in Ireland and in the Netherlands. And basically those subsidiaries might have some intellectual property of the company, or they may have some other assets of the company, and the larger parent company will pay extremely large amounts to these subsidiary companies for the right to use a brand or use a particular asset that is largely in the public's eyes viewed as pretty much an asset of the parent company and not of the subsidiary company. And so Apple is pretty much getting in trouble with the European Union, and basically these tax situations are all set up to keep the companies kind of in fraudulent territory. There is a subtle and a tacit agreement in between corporations and Western governments to kind of pat each other's backs, and whilst these governments will allow these corporations to have these ridiculous tax situations, they can come crumbling down at any moment. This particular situation has been going on for quite a while. Apple has had a subsidiary in Ireland since 1991, and they fought through many countries' allegations about avoiding taxes and the like, namely here in America and in the United Kingdom. And basically, this is just a ruffling of the feathers, or it may even be just as light as a public show to kind of let the regulators, and the politicians in the European Union kind of appear tough and like they're actually doing something to address the tax situation and the avoidance of taxes by large corporations. And they get to act a fool, and Apple gets to keep its situation and keep the money a coming. I think many people have been mistaken in thinking that this is largely a shakedown. And whilst it could very much be a shakedown, I could very much be wrong about my views and all. I don't think it is really a shakedown, because Apple pretty much already lobbies in all of these countries, and that is kind of their shakedown there. And so while a shakedown would usually result in a fee paid to a regulatory agency, it is much cheaper and much more efficient to go ahead and get those funds into a politician's re-election campaign or something like that than to go through the hassle of shuffling it through a regulatory agency. Now, sometimes, of course, there is a case that takes high public notice, and that is pretty much a sacrifice, I guess you could say, so that the companies can kind of maintain an illusion that the regulators and the politicians are actively on their tail, when the truth is pretty much the politicians want these companies to make money, and they don't want to pay taxes into the general fund. Instead, they will just let the companies kind of donate to get them elected in campaigns, or to ensure their victory through many other means. So basically, in this case, the European Union is kind of accusing Apple of receiving advantageous tax rates from Ireland for 16 years from the time period of 1991 to the year 2007, and Apple has pretty much a month to respond to these findings, but the investigation itself can kind of stretch out to 18 months, and many investors are kind of questioning right now, and it seems kind of stupid to me. They're wondering if this is going to be a potential future tax liability or whether it's a serious change in the effective tax rates of the double Dutch Irish sandwich strategy. And like I said earlier, I don't believe it is. I believe that it's just very much a show event to kind of keep the people thinking that basically the politician and regulators are on the ass of these corporations when they're not. And pretty much this is a quote from a regulator from the European Union. Though those rulings, the Irish authorities confer an advantage on Apple. That is granted in a selective manner. The advantage is obtained every year and ongoing, when the annual tax liability is agreed upon by the tax authorities in view of that ruling. Now, according to this, to the European Commission, who is the EC, the deals between between Apple and Ireland are from the year 1991 to 2007. And the notice is published in the European Union's EU journal, and of course, again, Apple has about a month to respond, and basically the investigation will get tied up so long that they'll settle or something like that. They may actually pay a lot of money, maybe even in the billions, but of course that is nothing compared to the amount of revenue that they are washing over. And pretty much there was a hearing in May 2013 between Mr. Tim Cook, who is the Apple CEO, and a Senate subcommittee on investigations, and it was where the government pretty much, like they just discovered it or something, accused Apple of channeling profits through Ireland to avoid paying taxes. And Senator Carl Levin of Michigan went on to say that Apple was the holy grail of tax avoidance, and that although the U.S. didn't pursue any fines or additional tax levies against Apple, the hearing did very much kind of set the the precedence for the EC investigation. And all of this is pretty much politics. They're acting as though they've just found out about this strategy. In truth and in actuality, they're very much responsible for keeping this going. They pretty much negotiated these tax rates, and they let them kind of do what they want to. And as long as Apple and Google and Microsoft and IBM and GE and these large companies continue to get these politicians elected, and it's not just in America. I mean, they buy Apple will buy, and it's not just Apple. Apple does not act in unison at all. Apple is one of many corporations that lobby together, and kind of they find that they have common ground with many other corporations, and so you'll save money by bribing a politician in France if you can get everybody together, all the large world corporations, and they'll say, hey, we'll exempt ourselves from taxes, we'll impose heavier taxes on mid-cap companies, and we'll all just buy out these politicians. And if all of us do it at once, there is less grounds to kind of pick one out of the fray to charge. It will be more accepted by the people, and pretty much it is easier to have a politician agree on a strategy where corporations are allowed to do this than it is for each corporation to kind of go to that politician and kind of vie for their own situation. but all of them do contribute, and all of them do lobby like this. It is very much how you run a corporation in the 21st century. It is the highest return on investments ever seen in the world comes from lobbying. And so, while it's largely been ignored for the stockholders, Apple has pretty much been in a bull market for the past 5 years, much more above than the general bull market of the S&P 500, and pretty much there's not going to be nothing changed. Apple will continue along with its tax strategy, and whether you believe it's good or not, if you believe corporations should bear a higher tax rate than what they do now, because right now, I'm not sure, but Apple probably pays less than 5% in taxes effectively, and pretty much this is pretty common. A lot of the accounting loops and tricks that companies do on their 10Ks and their end of the year reports, end of the fiscal year reports for shareholders and all that is pretty much it's very much baloney. It's not real, and the European Union is actually about 10 times as ludicrous as the American companies. American companies are actually a lot more transparent than many other countries around the world, including China, Japan, many of the countries of the European Union, and definitely more so than the emerging markets. And so companies like Apple, they're very much they will show you kind of the process, but they'll kind of hide it to where you got to know what you're looking for, whereas other countries companies will very much just hide it in its entirety and just redact all that information from the books. But if you look hard enough, you can very much find how Apple does this. And again, it is not that hard. I explained earlier in this video a very, very basic version, but again, it changes every year. And so that's pretty much it, guys. Leave your opinion or comment, rate, subscribe, whatever. Let me know what you think. If you kind of take the more liberal view that companies or corporations should bear a larger tax rate than 5, 10, 15, 20%, even bringing them comparable to mid-cap tax rates of companies that don't have a large enough volume of scale to lobby and to have all of these legal loopholes and accounting firms working for them 24/7. Or you might take more of a classical liberal approach where you kind of favor income taxes over corporation taxes, and you believe corporations shouldn't be taxed at all. Or whether you take a kind of a traditional conservative view where you believe that tax rates for corporations should be pretty low, and in between about 15 to 25%, which they've been throughout a long time period before many of these lobbying schemes kind of were formed. Or whether you have a different view on it. I'm pretty interested to hear everybody's opinion on this issue. So comment, rate, subscribe, and all that. And you guys have a great day. Look for videos like this in the future. And you guys take it easy. Bye bye.